In land development, an official zoning-approved stamp is meant to guarantee that a commercial site plan complies with the law. But occasionally, a developer achieves that stamp on a plan that harbors a fatal conflict between statutory requirements and physical geometry. The property in question is a BU1 commercial retail parcel bounded by two public rights-of-way, US Highway 1 and Helmsman Place. This photograph shows the specific logistical requirement for the intended business, a Japanese vehicle import operation that relies on large two-level commercial auto carrier trailers to deliver inventory. Here is the submitted civil engineering site plan. It formally designates an open concrete slab on the eastern side to accommodate massive transport trucks and includes Operational Note 29, explicitly stating deliveries will occur on this open-air slab. To get this design past county zoning reviewers, the developer employed a classic legal maneuver, redefining the building's physical orientation on paper to bypass standard commercial loading restrictions. But this paperwork maneuver creates a tension between the legal text and the physical dimensions of the lot. By reclassifying the building's orientation, the developer triggered a separate statutory mandate, one that requires a specific type of physical construction that must now be reconciled with the site's limited footprint. Administrative stamps of approval hold no weight if the underlying statutory text contradicts the physical space available to build it. The Brevard County Land Development Code utilizes a two-tiered framework to regulate where and how commercial vehicles can operate in retail districts. The baseline rule, found in subsection C3, provides flexibility. It allows temporary parking, open-air loading, and maneuverability for standard standalone commercial properties. But the code contains a strict override condition. The moment a commercial lot directly abuts residential zoning, those flexible guidelines are discarded. Returning to the site plan, we can trace the southern property boundary line. This southern edge directly shares a border with single-family residential properties, specifically lots 63 and 66 of the abutting subdivision. That direct adjacency triggers the override. Under subsection C sub 4, the site is now subject to a mandatory restrictive standard. All commercial vehicles must be located to the rear of the main structure, and they must be completely screened on all four sides by an opaque visual barrier. Residential proximity permanently strips zoning staff of their discretionary flexibility. What were once basic commercial guidelines are replaced by mandatory structural legal requirements. If the actual rear of the property touches the residential homes to the south, the developer had to legally justify placing their commercial loading zone on the east side of the building. They achieved this using a zoning defense known as the principal frontage theory. On the footprint, the west facade facing US 1 is designated the primary frontage. Zoning law defines the rear as directly opposite the front. This projects through the building, officially relabeling the east facade as the rear, downgrading the southern boundary touching residential homes to a side yard. This geometric paperwork maneuver convinced county zoning staff. They accepted that placing the open-air loading box on the east side technically fulfilled the code's requirement to locate commercial vehicles at the rear of the structure. Establishing the east side as the legal rear solves the location half of the statute, but it ignores the second half, the mandate for a complete four-sided physical enclosure. Subsection C.4 does not bend on the screening requirement. It strictly demands an opaque visual barrier enclosing the commercial vehicle operations on all four sides. Checking this against the approved site plan, we have to evaluate the perimeter of the designated east loading zone to see if it meets this rigorous standard. On the northern perimeter, the developer relies entirely on a Type B vegetative landscape buffer along the right-of-way. Vegetation fails the legal definition of opaque. Transparent gaps between tree trunks and seasonal leaf drops provide zero solid containment for commercial operations. On the eastern perimeter, the developer points to an existing masonry wall. That wall belongs to the private residential homeowners association next door. Developers cannot legally expropriate an adjacent property owner's private asset to satisfy their own on-site commercial zoning mandates. The southern perimeter is left open. The loading zone looks straight down a 22-foot asphalt drive aisle, providing an unobstructed sightline directly into the residential lots. The proposed plan offers zero solid containment. Legally, this exposes the abutting homes to unshielded views, heavy exhaust, and noise from transport unloading. To actually cure this zoning violation, The developer must construct a true structural enclosure, solid 8-foot masonry walls combined with opaque closing gates. Commercial auto carriers demand massive spatial footprints to stage the truck, deploy the offloading ramps, and maintain clearance for the vehicles. This schematic drops a 14-foot auto carrier footprint directly into the 22-foot eastern drive aisle. To achieve zoning compliance, we built the required structural walls and gates around that footprint. Calculating the remaining distance to the eastern property line reveals exactly how much asphalt is left. Constructing the wall chokes the available drive aisle clearance down to less than 10 feet. Base Civil Engineering Code, specifically Section 62-3206, strictly dictates emergency and traffic access minimums. Two-way traffic circulation and fire apparatus access routes cannot physically function in a sub-10-foot bottleneck. An emergency vehicle attempting to navigate the eastern corridor is entirely blocked by the encroaching enclosure, completely cutting off fire access to the southern parcel. Achieving the required zoning compliance mathematically destroys the site's mandated fire access and traffic circulation. The site is physically impossible to build as designed. The approval of this plan exposes a significant administrative failure. By accepting an open drive aisle in a row of shrubs as a legal structural enclosure, zoning staff essentially granted the developer an unlawful de facto variance without the required notice, findings, or public board approval. This forces a severe collision at the next phase of development, acquiring the building permit. A chief building official cannot lawfully issue a building permit based on civil drawings that contain an active, mathematically provable land development code violation. The geometry prohibits it. If the developer manages to force construction forward anyway, they step into a permanent operational trap. Going back to the site plan, Operational Note 29 explicitly admits that commercial loading will occur directly on the open slab. That hatched box is where the delivery trailer is designed to park. The exact second a transport operator drops their romps outside of a completed, four-sided opaque structural enclosure, the facility triggers an immediate violation of Brevard County Code, subjecting the operation to special magistrate enforcement and daily fines. Clever legal maneuvering can occasionally win temporary victories on paperwork, but the physical constraints of civil engineering and geometry always have the final, unyielding word in land development law.